Live from the noisy parking lot of Sprouts Farmers Market in beautiful downtown, no, it's not downtown, Land Park area of Sacramento. And here I'm going to talk about a little bit about this today. I hope you saw Constance just a moment ago as she was walking in the store. I wanted her to say good morning. Anyway, beautiful day here, and don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with too much of this, but it is the 32nd anniversary of the publication of, actually it's the first legitimately published work, and I say that in quotation marks, that I did. I co-authored this book along with three others with the late great Christopher S. Hyatt, PhD, otherwise known by his normal name, Dr. Alan Miller. And those four books more or less got my writing juices flowing enough to make me to hook me, I guess, in trying to translate my thoughts onto paper and share it that way. So Alan is definitely responsible for launching my addiction to writing. But anyway, it may have been the first of our books that was published in 1991, but it was the second book we worked on. The first one was going to be called The Ultimate Divination, and that ended up being published second after this one, because we got so excited about writing this one that we pushed it ahead in the publishing line. And the first one was going to be called The Ultimate Divination, and used tarot in conjunction with sort of an elaborate divinatory operation that Dr. Hyatt had devised, and I sort of helped contribute the Kabbalistic tarot part of that. But as we were writing that, it was wonderful. We wrote together at Alan's beautiful apartment in Long Beach, overlooking the bay, if you will, and he sat on his end of the living room with his computer and printer, and I sat on the other end with my computer and printer, and we were just casually talking about Enochian magic. And he mentioned that he'd read the material in Gems from the Equinox. Now, you have to remember, this is 1989, 1990, as we were writing this. It didn't get published until 91. So this was a long time ago, 32, 33 years ago when we were writing it. And there wasn't much Enochian material out there. There wasn't DuQuette material out there to confuse you. There was very little. There was the material that was found in the Golden Dawn material. Yes, there was Liber Hanoch and other Enochian-related material found in a couple volumes of the Equinox. Crowley's Equinox, but not many people had. There weren't new editions of the Equinox. At the time, the Weiser had a 1972. It was rare. The material was rare. So all you had was Liber Chinook to get any material from Crowley about Enochian magic. And when you first read it in the Equinox, it seems like he's talking another language, and not the angelic language. It looks like English, but it's pretty deep stuff, and it doesn't actually make, at first, much sense. So he was mentioning that they looked at it, but it didn't make sense, too much sense to him. And I had been working with the members of Monday night class. I'd been working practical Enochian magic, elemental magic, and etheric magic for some time then. Our lodge was chartered in 79, and Enochian was one of the early subjects of study. And I told him that, yeah, at first glance, Liber Chinook looks like it is absolutely gobbledygook. You don't know what Crowley's referring to. The diagrams don't make any sense, and they're there, but there's no explanation for them. But I discovered, and anybody would discover, that once you start to actually practically apply the material that is found in this Liber Chinook, Crowley's reprint of it, and his few little comments, it really makes sense. It's like it. Anyway, I was explaining to him, look, it's far more. Just pretend that the only material in the whole universe that's going to give you any information about Enochian magic is found there in that Liber Chinook. And just pretend that, and then read it carefully as if it was, holy script. This is the only thing you got to work on. And the more you read it, the simpler it gets. The more obvious it becomes. The more logical it comes before you can see the method to the madness. And the more you know, the easier it looks. The easier Crowley's material looks, until you finally get to the point of, my God, how could he describe so much? How could he explain so much in so few words? So that fascinated Alan, and he wanted to know more. And by the I guess it was 6 months later, we had said, I'll do an extended commentary on Liber Chinook. We'll add a bunch of material. Alan's specialty was what I guess we'd call today sex magic. It was the Tantra applications, and Alan was a Jungian psychologist in private practice, and so he added a little section on how the Enochian techniques could be applied to that, and that's where we've got the titillating subtitle, Enochian Sex Magic. Besides, there's nothing wrong with knowing that the word sex in a title of a book helps sell it. Anyway, that was 32 years ago, 1991, when this is what the first edition looked like. And Constance and I were designing the Terra of Ceremonial Magic at the time. and we were going to use the images from our Tarot of Ceremonial Magic in the deck, because there's a couple places where tarot images seemed appropriate. But Alan thought our designs, liked the designs, but he didn't like the artwork of our designs. And so he had our friend David P. Wilson, who would later write for Alan's publishing house as S. Jason Black, redo our designs on a few of the tarot cards. And so you can sort of recognize the moon card from Tarot of Ceremonial Magic, but interpreted by David P. Wilson. Okay. Now, I've rambled on. I'm only going to draw your attention to one other thing. It has stayed in print since 1991, okay? But it's gone through several incarnations and branched out after Alan's death to another heir to Alan's publishing house, Original Falcon. And so it's published by two publishers too. And the latest one, the latest version of it, has considerable additions to it. I've got not only a new chapter, but I've organized it in such a way as it's sort of like a workbook too. And it's even got blank things that you can make your own, print out your own truncated pyramid form and things like that. All the editions have an Enochian dictionary that was compiled by Israel Regarde, that has two pronunciation keys to it, one sort of Golden Dawn pronunciation and one the standard D and Kelly straightforward thing, and lots of tables and things like that. So it's being recently reissued as Enochian Sex Magic and How to Workbook, and so with brand new material by Lon Milo DuQuette. Anyway, it's been out for a year or so. So when I say offhandedly or informally that this has been the introductory text to Enochian magic and Enochian techniques for a generation of magical practitioners, I'm not exaggerating. It's a whole freaking generation. And whether or not this is the book that you stay with as you become more proficient in your practice and become an Enochian adept, it's still likely one of the first books that you've read. And I would wager it's one of the first books that made the light bulb go off on the top of your head. Oh, I'm going to use Lon's coloring instructions to step-by-step create my own. So how about that for a plug? Here's just the few words I wrote for the 1991 introduction. Oh God, here comes another truck. And it says, UNFI, 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 INRI, UNFI, and it says, driven by nature. Wow. If that isn't a direct communication of God to our souls. I'm rolling up my window. Okay. I digress. Introduction by Lon Milo DuQuette, 1991. In the introduction of a recently published book on Magick, so that's recently published, 1988, something, whatever the book was I was referring to. In a recently published book on Magick, the writer characterizes the Enochian material in Crowley's Equinox as being, quote, scanty and in, quote, disarray. I'm afraid I could not disagree more. In fact, it's so exquisitely comprehensive and laid out with such orderly neatness that Crowley can only be criticized for being too anal retentive. And that's a quote from Masonic scholar Gary Ford, who we knew at the time. Crowley can only be criticized for being too anal retentive. If that critic were capable of paying attention and spent an hour or less that it takes to read Enoch, she wouldn't help but grasp the subject. This, in my opinion, cannot be said of any other text on the subject. For example, the somewhat complex explanation of how the 18 calls are ordered and combined for invocations of the 16 different subangles takes 4 pages in Regardie's complete Golden Dawn system of magic, or Regardie's Golden Dawn of any kind. Crowley does it in 10 seconds. I'll not argue that Crowley demands much from his readers, but in the case of Liber 84, Vel Enoch, the difficulty is that one finds it almost impossible to believe that so much is communicated in so few words. And here's a quote from Crowley. The genuineness of these keys, altogether apart from any critical observation, is guaranteed by the fact that anyone with the smallest capacity for magic finds they work. 25 years ago, well, today that would be 55 years ago. 55 years ago, few members of the general occult community had ever heard of the Enochian system of magic. Those who were aware of its existence fell into 2 main categories. Members of the surviving magical societies which operated on the basic traditions of Ordo Templi Orientis, AA, or the Golden Dawn, or individuals lucky enough to possess either of 2 long, at that time, out-of-print works. Equinox Volume 1, numbers 7 and 8, or the Golden Dawn, volumes 1 through 4. Now, Regardie's Golden Dawn was originally published in 4 volumes, and then later, when Llewellyn took over publication, it was in 2 volumes, and then later in 1 big volume from Llewellyn. That was at the time. And just literally a couple of years prior to this writing, Regardie was still alive, New Falcon took over the project, and with Regardie's help, compiled the beautiful new complete Golden Dawn system of magic. But at the time I'm talking about, 25 years ago, talking about the mid-1960s, these were the only 2 things you had. Equinox, Volume 1, number 7 and 8, and the Golden Dawn. The Equinox, Crowley's magnum opus, issued at 6-month intervals between 1909 and 1914, was the first modern publication to examine the Enochian system in the 7th and 8th books of the 10-numbered series. Israel Regardie's account of the teachings, rites, and ceremonies of the Golden Dawn followed in 4 volumes, first published in 1937 and the 4th in 1940. Though material relating directly to Enochiana occupies only a fraction of the above texts, the quality of the material is unquestioned. Both provide clear, fundamental information that gives the student both basic understanding of the system and all the tools necessary to begin to immediately apply and operate Enochian magic. In 1969, Regardie's Golden Dawn was reissued in a 2-volume format. I should have just waited and listened to DuQuette here. 2-volume format, and then in 1974, he edited and released Gems from the Equinox, containing all the Enochian material from the original 10-volume set. Both works are still in print, and the complete Golden Dawn system of Magick, which Falcon Press at the time did in 1984. Regardie's Tour de Force, published shortly before his death, includes his invaluable Addendum to Concourse of Forces. This tome stands as a monument to both the man and the material. This time, the Enochian genie has stayed out of the bottle. Since 1969, an increasing number of students have turned their attention to this attractive yet at first glance overwhelmingly complex system. Their diligence is rewarded with something very rare indeed, a magical system that really works. This takes many armchair magicians entirely off guard. A legitimate encounter with an elemental spirit or an angel of an aether invariably leaves a more lasting impression on the magician than the phantoms of self-deluded wishful thinking that mark successful workings of the dilettante. Today, Enochiana commands a respectable amount of space on the shelves of your local occult or New Age bookstore. Much of the original D materials, still extant, has been reprinted and made available to an ever-growing body of readers. The students of the early 1970s have become the researchers and prolific authors of today. And I'm happy to say there are many of them. Many of the new works are excellent and offer invaluable contributions to the ever-increasing library of Enochian knowledge. And at the time, I was very impressed, I still am very impressed, by the works of Robert Turner. And so I give Robert Turner a plug here. And remember, I'm plugging him from somebody writing in 1988. The works of Robert Turner should be singled out for their insight and high level of scholarship. Some others, I feel, are of less value. Now, I don't name anybody by name here, okay? But early on, there was a series of Enochian books by a husband and wife team that I felt were not of quality material, as individual speculations and individual development of material for one's own purposes. I'm sure it was a wonderful and excellent example of someone taking a certain amount of information and then adding and amending and turning it into something that was uniquely their own, but they were passing it off as orthodoxy. Okay. Some others I feel are of less value. While perhaps informative as examples of the findings of one magician's experimentation, the distinction is not always made clear as to what is the author's speculation and innovation and what are actually the procedures suggested in the original documents. Then, to make matters even more confusing, the author presumes to define to the reader what they can expect to experience, intimating that if they get anything else, they are somehow in error. In my opinion, these works are little more than guided meditations on another magician's visions, and deny the reader the challenge of self-discovery and mastery. But I'm sure that new volumes such as these will continue to appear. I will not be surprised to someday see titles such as The Enochian Cookbook or I'm Okay, You're Enochian appearing at my local bookstore. It is our aim, and I'm talking about Alan and I, or Christopher Hyatt and I, it is our aim to offer in a practical format Liber 84, Vel Chanok, Crowley's original presentation of basic Enochiana, and making it immediately useful for the student who wishes to make use of it now. This, coupled with Regardie's fine Enochian dictionary and pronunciation guide, provides the reader with the minimum material necessary to get started. For the advanced student, we offer practical instructions concerning the powerful sexual applications. This is Ellen's particular contribution. And the opportunity to re-evaluate the original information that the greatest magician of the world, that's Aleister Crowley, greatest magician of the 20th century, felt was most necessary to master first. Anyway, that's my 31st anniversary trip down memory lane to my first projects with the late, great Christopher S. Hyatt, otherwise known as Alan Miller. I'm probably getting ready to organize and host an Enochian workshop, a beginning Enochian workshop dealing with probably the, well, anyway, right here in Sacramento. So I want all of you who are in the area to sort of watch this space for other announcements. But it's about time that I brush off some of the Enochian equipment and introduce yet again another generation to this marvelous magical method. Anyway, until tomorrow, which is Poetry Day, Constance reminds us, and she has something wild and crazy she wants to share with us tomorrow. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Hoath yada.